Support comes from Hampton Roads Community Foundation, partnering with donors from all walks of life to improve Southeastern Virginia through grants, scholarships, and leadership initiatives. Learn more at hamptonroadscf.org.
Support comes from Thomas Nelson Community College, now becoming Virginia Peninsula Community College, the first choice to start a bachelor's degree since tuition is one-third the cost of four-year schools. More at tncc.edu.
Hello, everyone. I'm Barbara Hamley. Lots to talk about on today's edition of Another View. Up first, if you are struggling with paying off your student loan, we have some news for you. Congressman Bobby Scott joins us to talk about public service loan forgiveness. And if you or someone you love is entering the golden years, we have expert advice on making your senior years your best years ever. Find out what you need to do to age gracefully in place. It's all next on Another View, right after this national, regional, and local news from NPR and WHRO News.
Discussing today's topics from an African-American perspective, this is Another View.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Another View. I'm Barbara Hamley. People with student loans breathed a sigh of relief when the Biden administration extended the restart of loan payments until the end of August. But what happens then? Is there a chance of getting loan forgiveness? We welcome Congressman Bobby Scott, who represents the 3rd Congressional District in Virginia. He has some news on public service loan forgiveness. Hello, Congressman. How are you?
Hi, Barbara. Fine. How are you?
I'm doing great. So what is public service loan forgiveness? What is that all about?
Public service loan forgiveness is designed to forgive student loan debt for borrowers who make 120 qualifying payments, that's 10 years, while employed by a federal, state, local government, or a nonprofit organization, somebody in public service. The program started probably 12 or 13 years ago, and as people got to their 10 years, it became apparent that the program was messed up. Some were not in the right program, so they were paying all these payments thinking they were making their 10 years, and they were in the wrong program, or they're making payments. Throughout the Trump administration didn't like the program, so they didn't administer it. Sometimes some say that they want smaller government, and government doesn't work, so they make sure government doesn't work just to prove the point. And then
so
in the student loan program, the public service loan forgiveness program was a mess. 99% of the people who applied for forgiveness were denied for some technical reason. And what the last October, the Biden administration came in and essentially created some waivers where you could get forgiveness even if you're in the wrong program, even if there was some technicality. And we're going to talk about that in a webinar tonight to show people how they can make sure that they take advantage of this 1 year. It's over in October, this 1 year period where they can take advantage of the public service loan forgiveness, although they may technically be in the wrong program.
So you will have all of the information that they're going to need to know to figure out if they can get into the program and take advantage of this tonight. If you want to sign up for the webinar, you go to edlabor, edlabor.house.gov, and you can sign up for the webinar there. Is that correct?
That's right. And the main point is to check with your loan servicer to make sure that you are getting appropriate credit for all of your payments. But the idea that 99% of the people that thought they had qualified for discharge were being denied I mean, maybe if 1% were denied, maybe it's their fault. But if 99% of the people who were applying for discharge are being denied, the problem is with the program.
Yeah.
And the Biden administration has simplified it and streamlined it for at least a year, so everybody can get straight. Everybody can make their get their discharge, even if they're in the wrong program, and make sure that they've consolidated their loans and that they're on track to discharge. It's a great program. Teachers, firefighters, people in government service, nonprofits. If you're working for the food bank or something like that, you can get credit for public service loan forgiveness.
Okay. So that is edlabor, edlabor.house.gov. The webinar is tonight at 6 p.m., and I'm sure that Congressman Scott would love to have you sign up. Congressman, before you go, I must ask you about the leaking of the draft document for the Supreme Court overturning Roe v. Wade. I know that there's a lot of conversation going on in Congress. You want to share with us what you guys are thinking? Where you going?
First of all, the leak is really unprecedented. It's almost unheard of for a decision to be leaked, and so that is obviously one concern. And people are wondering who leaked it. In my political history, I found that if you look at who benefits, you can find out who's behind something. I don't see how the liberal justices have anything to gain. There is speculation that one of the five who agreed to the original draft might have been getting shaky, and by releasing the draft, you kind of lock them in, because anybody that's not on board, you got to wonder, well, you were on board at first, what happened? And so you kind of stuck with your original position, and that would be a motivating factor. But I don't know. And the Supreme Court's investigating it. But the main thing is that it should not come as a surprise. There are 6 justices who were appointed with a specific mission, and when they were appointed, the president appointed them, said that they were appointing pro-life judges who would overturn Roe v. Wade. And here you are. You've got 6 on the court, and you've had 6 on the court for about 2 years.
So what about the conversation that's been going on between, I've heard Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi and others in the Senate talking about the possibility of Congress passing a law to keep women's rights?
Well, the House has already passed a bill which essentially codifies Roe v. Wade. It's a statute. Of course, if it passes the Senate, and signed by the president, it'd be the law of the land, subject to revision. I mean, you can pass another law. And, it's interesting that people are talking about getting rid of the filibuster to pass the law. They have to recognize that if you don't have the filibuster and you lose control of the House, Senate, and Republicans elected president, you stand the chance of them overturning that law and passing a bill that criminalizes abortion nationally. So I think if you repeal Roe v. Wade, you assume you'll go back to the situation right before Roe v. Wade, where several states had essentially allowed abortions to take place, and so it is a great inconvenience to travel to those states, but abortion would still be allowed in the United States. It is not an ideal situation. A lot of states will have laws in different kinds of way to prohibit it. But it cannot come as a surprise when people have voted for presidents who appoint Supreme Court justices, when the president campaigns on a platform that he will appoint judges that will repeal the Roe v. Wade.
Well, we've got lots of time to see, well, not lots of time, but we have time to see what happens in the future. Thank you so much, Congressman Scott. I know that you're busy. We wish you luck tonight with that webinar. And again, if you have a student loan and you are interested in finding out if you are qualified for the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program, go to edlabor.house.gov and register and join Congressman Scott this evening. Thanks so much, Congressman. It's always a pleasure.
Thank you, Barbara.
All right. You take care.
Okay.
All righty. So millions of baby boomers are in or entering their retirement years. It can be a confusing time. Medicare, long-term care insurance, health and safety issues, retirement income, the list goes on and on. Are you ready? Joining me now with some sound advice on making your golden years your best years are Kathy Vesley, President and CEO of Bay Aging. Hi, Kathy.
Hello. Good to be here today.
Thank you for joining me. I appreciate it. William Massey, who is President and CEO of Peninsula Agency on Aging. How you doing, Bill?
Just fine. Thanks, Barbara. Good to be here.
Good. Thank you so much. And Steve Zollos, CEO of Senior Services of Southeastern Virginia. Hey, Steve. How are you?
It's good to see you again, Barbara. I'm fine.
It's great to have you guys here. I've got lots of questions because I am in that group. I am a baby boomer and I am moving quickly. Well, I guess people would say I'm already there. But Kathy, I want to start with you because I do have this one question. Exactly at what age do you become a senior? Because you hear about 60, you hear about 55, you hear about 65, 67 if you want your Social Security. When are you a senior?
Well, to be politically correct, we don't use the term senior. We talk about older Americans. And so each day of your life, you're getting a little bit older. Now, if you want to talk about qualifying for the programs and the services, for a lot of the Older Americans Act services, they consider 60. There are other programs that vary. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, if you want to look at the older adults who are actually coming to us in clients independent, then you're getting closer to your 80s, as we all are these baby boomers living longer and healthier. Yeah. So it varies.
So I know, Bill, that May is Older Americans Month. See, I didn't say senior.
Very good.
Way to go.
It's Older Americans Month. And I know that the focus this time is on aging in place. But what does that term mean, aging in place?
I think we talk about aging my way or how an individual prefers to age. And I think the vast majority of older adults prefer to remain in their homes, in their communities, as opposed to being in more of an institutional setting. Mm-hmm. And so much, virtually everything that determines the ability to stay in the community and age in place is how well you function, physically, mentally, spiritually. Mm-hmm. And I think that in part, the response on the first question, Barbara, about when are you a senior? I'll use that word, but when are you an older adult? I think it's more about functioning than how chronologically old you are. I thought the number is, yeah.
Yeah, because Steve, I think that baby boomers changed the trajectory in terms of what people thought of as older. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I agree. We look at functionality, as Bill has pointed out, and the longevity of people that are living longer. And now with the baby boom coming mm-hmm. and the population exploding in the 60-plus population group, the way that we view and look at older adults is different. I do some presentations and talk about, the people we're talking about now are not your grandparents' grandparents. Things have changed. People are living longer. They're healthier for the most part, and there's more opportunity to stay healthy if you know what's available to you and you actually take advantage of it.
So things like, give me some examples of what more opportunities are available today than maybe were not available 10 years ago, 20 years ago.
Yeah, the Older Americans Act is a great place to start with the services and things that are being provided today through the organizations represented here amongst other not-for-profit organizations. So things like nutrition counseling, caregiver support. Caregiving is very important, making sure that older adults have the support structure beneath them to be able to stay healthy and engaged, and making sure caregivers have what they need so that they don't get burned out and end up being needing support themselves. Options counseling, where we can send people into the home to help older adults figure out what's available to them and what do they choose that they want assistance with, so that they can stay in their homes or stay in their communities where they want for as long as possible.
So, Kathy, we talked about, this takes planning, because you can't just wake up one morning and go, oh, I guess I'm an older person now and I need to figure this out. When should you really start thinking about how to plan for your older years, and what should be some of the things that you need to take care of first?
Well, I think that the overall economic picture and the fear of running out of money, that really those financial institutions who talk to you about start planning for retirement early, they're right. So 20, 25, 30, it's never, ever too early to get started. And as Steve, you're talking about these programs and nutrition counseling and such, if you want to age in place and want to have that healthy golden years, as you put it, then you really do. It's all of the basics that we know about exercise and good health care, but getting into programs and services as you need them. We all offer chronic disease self-management classes for people. And as you said, nutrition counseling, fall prevention, which is the most likely accident to put you in an emergency room and in a downward spiral. But getting into education and prevention, I think, is really the key to it. Mm-hmm. But if I can give an even more fundamental key, I think being in touch with your area agency on aging. I know I'm going to sound like a commercial here, but we recently, in the Bay Aging 10 rural county area, completed an extensive needs assessment of older adults. And there wasn't a lot of variation, but for example, in the African American community there was a huge emphasis and request for counseling, caregiver counseling and supports. And we're going, oh my, we offer that free of charge. We even have...
what were some of the issues that would cause them to say that's what we need?
I think that you have about a third of the population, they're caregivers, and we're more rural there. And so folks are just, what do I do? They're the lifeline. I need respite. And some of it's just counseling. What do I do in this situation? And so we have the support groups, and we have a program that's telephonic. You can call experts, and we pay the tuition. And yet we can't get enough people to participate. So that shows we really have some outreach to do. So thank you for this program today. People just don't know about the services that we offer.
Absolutely. So, Bill, if someone decides, okay, I'm getting older, I love my home, this has been my forever home, I raised my children here, and I want to stay here, are there things that they need to think about while they're still healthy and able to function now? Are there things that need to be changed in the home? I mean, how do you make that decision that you're going to stay in place, and then what do you need to do to make sure it happens?
Yeah, the number one thing I think you have to consider if you want to stay in the current home is accessibility. If you have narrow doorways, you have a bathroom that's not accessible, you don't have grab bars, you need to be really taking a look at how you can do modifications and make the home more accessible while you are able to navigate before you really need or find yourself in a situation that it's an emergency. Mm-hmm. So that's one of the things.
Okay, Steve, what do you find are the major things that people don't have in place as they're getting older?
I think there's a lot of simple things. If I go back to Bill and Kathy's comments about falls, for example, simple things like grab bars, getting your house in order so you are eliminating throw rugs that might create a fall, things like that. I'll give an example. As my parents were aging in their 70s, we looked and we said, you need grab bars and you need to get your house outfitted. And they said, no, we don't. We're mobile. We can do like we are. But as a family, we said, we're going to do this for you. We put in the grab bars. We did the work. And they stayed in their house into their 90s. And I look at that primarily because someone was able to look and say, we're going to do for you now so that you don't have an accident and you can stay in your home. Mm-hmm. So I think the forward thinking for caregivers and older adults is the primary thing that people need to get into their mindset to say, I'm going to act now. I'm not going to wait till there's a huge difficulty in my family.
440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240 are the numbers to call to join our conversation. We're talking about growing older and about preparing for your senior years. 757-440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240. If you are aging in place, if you are still living in your home or in a home where you feel comfortable, we'd love to hear from you and hear your story. If you're a caregiver, we would love to hear from you and hear how you are navigating the system and what help do you need, because we've got the experts here in the studio to help us. 757-440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240. So I will tell you all, I had an experience 3 years, almost 4 years ago now, where I had to bring my mother from Baltimore to Norfolk to live with me because she became ill. And for as long as I've been in media and as many resources as I know and so forth, you could have just blown me over with a feather. I was just lost in terms of how to get started. What advice do you have for people who find themselves in that situation if they haven't prepared ahead of time? What do they need to do, Bill?
If I may take just a moment and share a personal experience.
Sure.
Many years ago, when my mother reached the point that she needed additional supports and services, I was one of 7 siblings. And my 6 brothers and sisters literally looked at me and said, "You're the expert. You tell us what to do." And in spite of the fact that I was reasonably well connected to the aging services network, I said, no, we need someone who can be objective. And we went to our local area agency on aging and brought in an options counselor, care coordinator who could share the possibilities and help develop a plan that we could all buy into. So
yeah, because it really does make a difference when it's you personally.
Absolutely.
Now each of you covers. So we've got the whole Hampton Roads area covered, right? Because you're Kathy in Gloucester and
Northern Neck and Middle Peninsula, the 10 counties.
So you're more rural.
Yes,
am I correct in that? Steve, you're Southside.
Southside and Western Tidewater out to Isle of Wight, Southampton, and Franklin as well.
Okay. And then, Bill, you're Peninsula.
Yeah, we're much more compact. The 6 jurisdictions on the peninsula, right? Yeah.
So if you need their help, that's where you go. And we will put out the information on each of your organizations as we go forward. So culturally, African Americans tend to just bring the family member to their home. I mean, that's what we do. But that also requires help if you're working or if you may need some additional help. What kinds of questions or things do you see people asking in that vein, Kathy?
Well, unfortunately, a lot of people are asking for in-home help. They want the respite. They want to be able to get out. And we do have a caregiver crisis, a true crisis in this country, much less in rural or urban areas. It really doesn't matter. So they're looking for some help, and we cannot identify folks who want to come to work and function in an aid capacity doing that kind of work. I've always thought it's God's work. It's so important, and yet it is very hard to find. Mm-hmm. So adult daycare can help, but also, again, just arming yourself with a support group and looking to your neighbors, your friends, your church, and just really try to marshal all of the resources that you can informally. And again, that's where our care coordinators that help navigate can really help, because they can help you brainstorm. And so many of us, and especially in the African American community, we have found folks are in need and aren't reaching out.
If you're just joining us, we're talking about services available to help you in your senior years with Kathy Vesley, President and CEO of Bay Aging, William Massey, President and CEO of Peninsula Agency on Aging, and Steve Zollos, CEO of Senior Services of Southeastern Virginia. That's that tongue twister. 757-440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240. Go ahead, Bill.
One thing that occurred to me when Kathy was talking a moment ago is that it doesn't have to be an either-or situation where the family either has to provide all the care, or you just throw up your hands and say, let someone else take care of it. It can be a real partnership, and that's so important. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the ideal way to proceed.
Do you find that there's a difference, especially for you two, since you deal more in urban areas as opposed to rural areas? Are there different needs at all? I'm just curious.
I think the needs are very similar, but how we are able to provide for those needs differs dramatically, just because of the rural spread out setting versus being compact. Transportation's a big issue, for example. Typically, it's easier for us to provide transportation in the urban areas as opposed to the rural areas that are more expanded. And I do want to touch base on the caregivers for a second as well. And just to note, I've never met a caregiver that thought they had everything together. It doesn't matter how good they are. They're always looking because there are people who care, right? And they're always looking and saying, am I doing everything that I can? And have I provided all the needs for the person I'm caring for that's possible? My encouragement is arm yourself with the information you need, especially through the area agencies on aging, to be able to say, have I done everything that I should and could be doing? And are there resources that I can utilize to help me fulfill that? Because I can't do everything myself. And I think if caregivers start to understand that, they'll be reaching out more, and they'll be able to care even more effectively for their loved ones.
Do you think that everybody automatically assumes it's a cost, so therefore that might be something that keeps them from reaching out?
Yeah, that's a really great question, because there's two things. Kathy brought up at the beginning, people are trying not to outlive their finances. Well, first off, if they think there's a cost, and most of the programs that we provide are not at a cost at all to the clients, and if they are, they're on a sliding scale. So there's no cost to get the information and to get most of the services. And that goes right into playing into, how do I maintain my finances? Well, you utilize your area agencies on aging, and those are dollars you don't have to spend to get the same information elsewhere.
Gotcha. 757-440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240. Mark joins us from Norfolk. Hi, Mark. You're on the air.
Hey, good afternoon to you and your guests.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, I feel like I'm an expert caregiver. I had my mom dementia 3 years who lived in our home. And when you mention caregiver, what it is, the lady mentioned nobody wants to work. But the truth of the matter is that all of the really incentives are in the wrong places. Give you an example. You'll have an aide come to do what they call a bed and bath. So they may come and, give the person a bath, feed them and put them to bed. So they may allow 2 hours for that. So now 2 hours at $8 an hour, you got $16. And you see this aide catching the bus or doing an Uber, it breaks your heart. So it's like it's an upside down scenario, which is insane, where you have a Medicaid dollar that starts at the top. And what our capitalistic system does, it says, how much profit can I make from this dollar, $35 an hour, $40 an hour, whatever it starts out. And then after they figure all of their expenses and all their profit margins, then they figure out, what does patient X need? So until we get this thing done right and enough people scream to the heavens, you're not going to recruit anybody. And for somebody to say this is God's work, I just find that disingenuous. It's work.
Okay,
and people
Mark,
need to be paid for their work.
We got you. We understand exactly what you're saying. And actually, our guests are nodding their heads. So let me let them respond to you. Kathy, you want to start?
Well, first of all, I didn't mean to upset anyone. I'm just telling it like it is.
Fine.
We don't have folks who want to go into that line of work. And I agree. We do not offer Medicaid aids because we couldn't pay them a living wage. We could not. And so I'm in agreement with what I heard there. Mm-hmm. We are very fortunate that we have some long-term aides, though, who stay with it because they would say it's God's work. It's what they're called to do. But I have to agree, we have for years looked at what we ask people to do and what the wages are, and it is abysmal. Mm-hmm. So as I said, we don't provide the Medicaid because, frankly, even though it's very important, and I'm glad that some people do because sometimes something is better than nothing, I would agree that more needs to be invested.
Steve, when we were talking prior to the show, and we were talking about Congressman Scott talking about the loan forgiveness program and having nonprofit employees, and you were saying maybe this is something we need to look at as an incentive also. I mean, are there other things that you all are doing to try to get people into that care mode, because there's so many of us that are going to need help?
Yeah, it's a great question. The workforce, especially for nonprofits, has really shifted and changed. The way that we allow our workers to work remotely and in office has changed and adjusted as well. And we participate in the general workforce like everybody else. We're not for profit, so we typically don't pay as much as other organizations might. However, the intrinsic value of what we do is why people come to us. So we have people with heart that want to serve older adults. They, as Kathy says, they feel called to this. So it's the best type of people we can get. But we're looking for perks and ways that we can say, we value you, we're paying you as much as we can, and we want to show you our appreciation as a workforce on an ongoing basis. So this opportunity that Congressman Scott has been talking about may be one of those things that we can say, hey, we're a not-for-profit. You can take advantage of this and get your loans forgiven and at a huge financial savings to you. And, of course, we're looking at other things as well. How do we do our paid time off? Are there ways that we can be more lenient? Can we give people more time at home to work so that, especially if they're caregivers as well, they have more time to be able to flex and help out? So we're working really hard to make sure our workforces are appreciated and paid appropriately.
There are some things from a legal standpoint that need to happen if you are taking care of someone, or you may wind up having to take care of a parent or a loved one. For example, power of attorney or health. What do you call it? When you have permission to do the health care.
Advanced directives.
Advanced directives, yeah, and things of that sort. So are those, is information about that available? Is that a service that you all offer to families? Because not everybody can afford to go out and get an attorney and do it.
At PAA, we've had the privilege of working with the Williams Mullen law firm, and they have brought some of the law students from William and Mary into the mix, and we've at least twice a year been able to serve each time 32 individuals, and the attorneys work pro bono, and they compile. They have the will, the power of attorney, and advance directives. That's the package, and at no charge to the individual. There is a cap on income. It's around $2,500 for an individual. If you're at or under that, then we can provide the service, and it's very conservatively valued at $600 to $800 for that, and it's targeted to exactly the individuals who need this but simply cannot afford it. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And Steve, why is it important to have those documents?
Well, it's super important in case there's an event that you need to be hospitalized, and the different documents allow decisions to be made on your behalf that you have already decided. So you don't have somebody else coming in and making decisions about you and the care that you're receiving if you're not able to make those decisions at any given time. Mm-hmm. So it's definitely worth everybody's while to get their advance directives in place so that they can be prepared in case of an event.
Okay. 757-440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240. John joins us from Richmond. Hi, John. You're on the air.
Yes, ma'am. I have a question for you. First of all, I enjoy your show all the time.
Thank you.
But my question for one of your guests is that my grandmother, she's in Richmond. How do you know anyone in the Richmond area, first of all? And she has her bathroom redone, but the physical therapist told her that she needs more space in her bedroom, and we tried to get her to fix her den up, but she doesn't want to do it. She's hard-headed. she is. I mean, what can I say? She acts like a teenager sometimes.
Okay, John, let me let Bill answer your question.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
He tempts me to get off track with that hard-headed comment, but I'll not. The three area agencies on aging represented here today are part of a statewide and national network of area agencies on aging that do very similar things all across the country. And the area agency that serves Richmond is known as Senior Connections. But if you want specific information on a phone number or what their website is, so forth, just contact any Peninsula Agency on Aging or Senior Services or Bay. We would be happy to provide that information so you can connect with the folks in Richmond. And I think a little further comment, particularly here in the Hampton Roads area, knowing that we, the local folks, are part of a national network should be of some comfort to veterans who live in this area and to active duty military personnel who have people they are concerned about all across the country. So we're there to help with that too.
That's something that's different. So I want to get you all's feeling about this because I remember having great conversations with my mom about whether or not seniors should only hang with seniors. In other words, we have senior living areas where apartments with all seniors 55 and above. Her perspective was, I want to be around young folks because I want to stay young. I mean, what's the thought on whether or not if once you get to a certain age, you should only stay in that realm? Steve?
Yeah, it's a great question. And one of the things that COVID revealed to us, to everybody, is the importance of not becoming socially isolated. And I think in whatever vein that takes, I think there's great values in older adults networking with older adults on a regular basis. But we also work really hard to provide intergenerational connection as well. And I think we need to make sure our older adults recognize they are of great value. The wisdom they have, the information they have is super important for our youth to hear and understand, especially today when media is pumping so many things into our ears. For them to provide that stability in thinking, that stability in values is so important to not only their families directly, but to the community at large. And they can do that through programs like at our Hayden Village Center. We have a community garden project where the older adults team with the folks from the elementary schools to help plant and learn about growth and gardening and things like that. And they have conversations while they do it.
Absolutely.
Really important.
Tell us about Hayden. How is it doing? Because that has a very specific African-American connection.
Yeah. Hayden High School was founded by Della Hayden, who was born into slavery, took advantage of the opportunities for education and persevered and became a leader in the educational system in Virginia, and then came back to Franklin, the city of Franklin, and said, you know what, I'm going to help other young African-American girls understand and get their education. Yeah. And that expanded to include boys eventually and became the public school as well. And what we did at Hayden was we did a historic renovation in order to bring that Della Hayden legacy forward to today, so we didn't lose that. And now the what used to be the high school is now 28 older adult apartments. We have a community center where weddings take place. We have community meals for older adults. We have the community garden. It's thriving. It's really a community asset that really speaks highly of Della Hayden and the legacy that she brought forward.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
What is the service that you offer, Bill, that nobody knows about? But that they're surprised that you offer.
Hopefully wouldn't be surprised, may not know about, but we've recently received funding from the Federal Transportation Administration to provide transportation to veterans in the Hampton Roads area, not just on the peninsula, to the Hampton VA Medical Center. And contact the Peninsula Agency on Aging, and we'd be happy to work with you to provide that much needed support in this area.
And same question for you, Kathy. What program, name a program that you have that most people might be surprised that is available to help?
I think they're surprised by a lot of our programs because we have public transportation. We're rural, so we're public transportation. In addition to, it's not just for older adults, it's for people of all ages. They're also surprised by our housing. We haven't really talked about it aside from people want to age at home, but a huge concern in our last needs assessment was fear of homelessness. It is huge, and the older population is the fastest growing segment of homeless individuals. And so we do have...
And they wind up losing their homes because...
Well, they fall into disrepair, and they cannot continue to afford to fix them. That is a big, big problem, and there are not enough resources. We have some resources, a few, to help with that, but that, and then if there's any one situation, many folks, we don't have a lot of home ownership in our area, especially among our African-American population, and these folks are COVID was great when you had the rent relief program, but now there's a huge fear around that. We work on that. We're very active in prevention of homelessness, and people are surprised. And that's for all ages, not just older folks. And in that, there is a program where we work to get you into a motel immediately. And while you are in there, we are looking for housing, be it our own apartments that we have developed and we manage, or others in the community. So that is something that I think people are so surprised that we work in housing, but it's a major part of our agency. So another reason to reach out to your area agency on aging, because you never know what they may have that you or a loved one may need.
What about you, Steve? What's going on in Southeast?
Yeah, this is an important question. Hard to answer because all of my leaders are going to go, why didn't you pick mine? But I'm going to bring up the one, it's our Senior Companion Program. And the reason I want to bring that one up is it has two ends to it. First, older adults who find themselves isolated or needing a friend. This is a place where we match people with the likes that they like to do, whether they like to go shopping, they like to get out, they like to watch TV, they like to play cards. We match another older adult with them who's mobile and can get out and about. and they go and become friends is really what happens. And it serves for the social isolation. It also serves for some of the light housekeeping, things like that. But on the other side, the senior companions themselves speak so highly of the friends that they make. They come, they say, I want to be a senior companion, and then they end up making lifelong friends with the people they serve. So it's a really phenomenal program.
That is incredible. Oh, he went away. I thought we had another call from 440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240. So what kind of respite care is available for caregivers? You know, no matter how much you love the person, no matter how much you want to be, you know, a part of them, it's hard work, and it can get to be very tiring. Isn't that right, Kathy? And sometimes you need a break.
Oh, yes. And we hear about that, and there is not enough respite care out there. However, I will say the veterans do have the benefit that there is additional respite care available for them. Now, you have to go through your doctor at your VAMC, your own medical center, but they can actually prescribe or refer you for programs with in-home care and or respite care. So that's good for that segment of the population. I think other than that, it gets into maybe a home aide. It can even be the companion, so that if it's not a caregiver, but we have something similar happen with our Meals on Wheels volunteers. They go, they check. So if the individual isn't totally dependent on having another person there, you can at least have that type of human check-in system during the day. And adult daycares. Adult daycares are wonderful. It gives that social opportunity and meaning to life as they work on activities and fun things. And I'll just add, to your question of better with your peer group or better with younger. And a lot of that is your attitude, because I have found some older groups, it can get to be a grumpy little group there. And I would say, wouldn't be friends I would hang out with. But I think the mix and match, it's like all of life. You want to continue to live your life.
So I'm going to ask this question of all of you. What is the best way to have the conversation with your loved one that they need to give up their license, that they got to come out from behind that wheel? Bill?
There is no easy way that I'm aware of. The Center for Excellence in Aging and Lifelong Health it's a Riverside Health System affiliate based in Williamsburg, but they have a driver evaluation program, and that's one way. That's going to be more objective than I telling you, or vice versa, that it's time to consider giving up your license. That is one of the toughest, because that's a big piece of our independence, as we all know.
Absolutely.
And as a senior member of this group, I probably understand that better than the rest of you guys.
And I think the family doctor can help. I know that with my stepfather, when it was time, and he just would not listen to my mom or any of us, he knew best. And she went to the family doctor and had the doctor have that talk. Okay. However, our transit director said he once heard someone at a doctor speaking at a seminar that said, you know what, I would rather tell someone that they've been diagnosed with cancer than tell them they have to give up their driver's license.
Well, I guess that just means that's, or they may think that means that's the total end of their independence if they can't get out and drive on their own.
Yeah, Steve? And if you're the person trying to convince an older adult that it's time to stop driving, it would be really helpful to wean them off. So you know when they typically go to the store, you know when they typically go to their support program, and be able to say, I'm going that way, let me take you. So they become dependent on the alternates, or they're going to a congregate meal program at senior services or one of our programs and say, you know what, I've lined up a bus to come get you. It's one of our buses, but they said, you know what, we've set it up for you so that they're going to come right to your door and pick you up. So offer those alternatives, get them used to being provided with rides slowly until you can broach the subject and say, you don't really drive that much.
Yeah. And last minute, we got 3 minutes left. When do you know that it is time that they can't continue to age in place? I mean, outside of a catastrophic illness or something, but I mean, just in terms of because we talked about how gradual some of the changes happen as you get older. Go ahead, Bill.
There may be other ways, but I think maybe the way it happens most often is when the family caregivers simply cannot carry the burden any longer. And that you just really have to make other arrangements, as painful as that may be for everyone concerned.
Mm-hmm. And are there counseling services available through your organizations that can help you navigate that, Kathy?
Yes, we have counseling and, as I said, support groups, and you can be in your own home and have telephone counseling and suggestions. One, we're trying to help caregivers not to be, as they say, burned out, trying to help them to find techniques and ways to delay that moment. But I agree with what you said, Bill. It's usually when you just can't do it anymore, and folks' tolerance levels differ. And my mom was the caregiver for my stepfather, and it's almost way too typical. She went first. She had the catastrophic heart attack, surprise everyone. And, we had all those situations we described. Well, now what are we going to do?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, one very quick thing, a last minute thing that you'd like to leave the audience with. We got 1 minute to get all three of you in. So just give me one little tip that they need to think about.
The Hampton University Center for Gerontology, Dr. Ethelyn Gibson, is a wonderful resource and a great partner with the area agencies on aging.
Okay, that is William Massey, President and CEO of Peninsula Agency on Aging. Thank you so much. Steve?
Yeah, I would just give 4 keys to successful aging. First, stay active and engaged. Second, know and take advantage of available resources through your AAA. And don't wait until the need comes. Start now to prep. And finally, we didn't talk about it, but learn technology. There's so much in technology that can help you age in place and stay healthy and active. It's very important that you get a basic understanding of technology.
Okay, that is Steve Zollos, CEO of Senior Services of Southeastern Virginia. And Kathy, you get the last 10 seconds.
And in 10 seconds, I will say, call your agency on aging and have a conversation with someone who will come to your house, and really look at all aspects and talk with you as a friend.
And that's Kathy Vesley with CEO and President of Bay Aging. Thank you all so much for joining me. I really appreciate it. And audience, before we leave you today, let me invite you to attend the second Beloved Community Conversation brought to you by the Virginia Symphony Orchestra. It's Thursday, May 12th at 7 p.m. at the Brown Memorial Hall Theater on the campus of Norfolk State University. You will experience beautiful symphonic music and a thought-provoking discussion on social justice as we explore ways to create and maintain Dr. Martin Luther King's vision of a beloved community. It's free and open to everyone, and I hope you will join me as I moderate the discussion. And the Inheritance Project presents Exodus Homecoming with performances tonight through Saturday at the Historic Attics Theater in Norfolk. Thursday and Friday night performances are at 7:30. Saturday's performance is at 2:30, and tickets are pay what you can. Now, this brand new play reimagines the 7 cities as an intergenerational family and explores the hidden and not so hidden struggles of the 757. Co-created through conversations with hundreds of locals over a 9-month process, this piece was inspired by the Book of Exodus, the history of coastal Virginia, and the perspectives of people who call this place home. Each performance will be followed by a talkback with the creative team and local leaders to discuss themes of the play and the possibilities for the future of Hampton Roads. So come on out and be involved. Next week on Another View, it's the Another View Roundtable with their thoughts on life for women in the absence of abortion rights. Our theme music is an original composition created especially for Another View by Jay Sennett. Lisa Godley is our show producer. Todd Washburn is our audio engineer, and Dr. Barry Graham answered our phones. I'm Barbara Ham Lee. To everyone who's a mom, happy Mother's Day. Let's get together again next Thursday at noon for Another View.
Support comes from Thomas Nelson Community College, now becoming Virginia Peninsula Community College, the first choice, whether starting your bachelor's degree or advancing your career. More at tncc.edu.
Support comes from Hampton Roads Community Foundation, carrying out your charitable wishes forever, whether it's helping shelter animals, feeding the homeless, enhancing the arts, or supporting students. Learn more at leaveabequest.org.